people.
But I need that will.
Right.
Hi. Sorry.
Hi, Risa. Sorry about that. I was doing two things at once.
I'm sorry.
I was finishing a phone call at the same time as I was logging in, so I didn't come in late because I don't like to be late for anything.
You like me.
That's it. I was born on time. It's been a struggle ever since.
Oh, with me, it's not a struggle. I just make sure I'm doing what I have to do.
Well, yeah, I try and follow through and everything else. Have you been doing otherwise?
Okay, good. You heard we got a new rabbi, right?
I saw that. I had attended the one shiur session that he did for us hoi polloi, and it's a very hard thing to succeed, Rabbi Bodner.
Yes, it is. It really is.
He's a very special intellect and a very gifted personality. He's very dear.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I know. Everyone's asking me, you happy? I went, I guess so. He's not going to replace Rabbi Bodner. I mean, that's his thing.
Yep. It's going to be in the pudding.
Yeah.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
After all, what's life without pudding? Are you ready for the holiday?
Yeah, I'm going to my daughter, so I'm very ready.
Thank you. Thank God you can do that. I think I'm home alone for it.
Oh.
I will take out my machzor and I'll spend a lot of time focusing on the piyutim, which I love, just unraveling puzzles.
Oh, okay. So you're going to be home.
Yep.
I mean, you're not going to shul. You're going to be home.
No, I'm still very self-isolating. It's the advantage and disadvantage simultaneously of being retired and not having responsibilities. I did go out for a walk today. It was gorgeous. Just lap it up. Wonderful. It's my favorite kind of weather.
But you didn't go out.
I did go out today.
Oh, you did go out. Okay, good.
Yeah. And I have a lot of projects going and things to keep me out of trouble.
Oh, okay, good.
Certainly out of boredom, and that's what we do. So
That's good.
and this time of year, lots of friends here, there, and other places to correspond with and yak on the phone with, and I have a whole list of people whom I speak to nearly daily.
Okay, great.
They're all of my age bracket or older, and that means it's important.
Yeah.
Okay, Presidente is joining us.
Yes, he is. Hi, Presidente.
Hello, Jeff. Hello, Jeff.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Tova.
Gam lecha. You sound too excited.
It's creeping up on me, and I'm getting panicky.
Shana muzara.
This has been, yes.
A strange year.
to the absolute extreme.
Yes, okay. You were away at the Cape.
Oh yes, how delightful!
Okay.
How delightful the Cape May is and will always be.
Oh, you were in Cape May. I thought you were going up to Cape Cod.
I did. I went to Cape Cod.
Okay.
Oh, you
I went to
said
Cape
Cape
Cod.
Mays.
I said as Cape may be, or
As
Oh.
Cape may be. Okay.
Okay.
Well, we misunderstood you.
no, I've never been to Cape May actually, and I understand it's sort of interesting. It's probably very touristy, but the Cape
Yeah.
we were in Barnstable, which is very civilized.
Okay. Did you have some baked beans?
No, I didn't. I had haddock.
Okay.
Well,
That's
Or-
good.
If I were being worse, I could ask if you got scrod.
I did get scrod actually. I bought scrod. I was able to buy. I had haddock, scrod, and cod.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Reminding me of my Boston years.
Yeah. Oh, there he is. There's the-
So last week you said I look like Stanley, and so today I got a trim.
It's good to see you, Alan. It's been many years.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. And there's Rachel Frazier. Happy New Year.
Hi, Jeff. Happy New Year. Shana
Can you hear
Tova,
me?
you.
Can you
Hi.
give a thumbs up if you can hear me? Yes, I see a thumbs up. I can't hear anyone or myself at all.
Ooh.
Have you joined with audio?
How about now?
We hear you.
I
We
hear
hear
you.
You still
you.
hear me, but I can't hear any of you.
Well, we're being very quiet.
Ooh, that's a problem.
Okay, sorry. It's okay, everybody. I'm going to restart my computer.
Yes.
I think that's going to be
Okay.
simplest. Is that all right?
We won't leave the room. You're
See
still
you all
within
in a
the
couple of
academic
minutes. Thank you
court.
so much.
So that's that. I was just in Lawrence, on Long Island today, and these shuls have big backyards, and big tents, and everyone's so happy. They don't have to deal with, they have the space to be outside. It's really very nice.
My shul has 4 indoor minyanim, very, very small in different rooms, and 7 outdoor minyanim in backyards.
In backyards.
And a bank parking lot, a failed bank, not just their parking
A
lot.
failed bank. Oh my God.
Well, a branch that's closed down. And gave us-
Rachel,
Hey there, how are you?
not too bad. How are you?
Good.
Margie's been real busy. Thank you, Margie.
Oh, I'm exhausted.
And how are you going to daven? Not
We're
in
gonna
the
be
building.
indoors.
Oh, you are going to be
We've decided, but we've limited our capacity is about 135, and we're doing 33%, a third of that. So with about 45, we put out 45 machzorim. When the 45th machzor is handed to that 45th person, we close the door.
Wow.
That's how we're gonna have to be. We have to do
I
this.
promise you I won't steal a seat from anyone who wants it.
I was just gonna say, Robert, don't take too much for him, Robert.
Right. Well, I'm still sort of semi-hiding from the world.
Yeah, good.
And
I have a question for you. Do you know if Ezra's going to be selling this year?
I'm sorry?
Do you know if Ezra is going to be selling this year? Is he going to set up on,
The Lulav? That's right.
Oh,
On Canal Street?
I can call the Shoshanis, yeah. I should ask them. You know, why not? I mean, it's outdoors.
Where's Rabbi Wolfson? What happened to him?
I don't know.
He was
had
having
to
an issue
log
with-
off. He couldn't hear us.
Oh.
He's starting again.
Where are you going to be with your kids, Rachel? For Yom Tov?
Well, I was going to go to outdoor lunches, weather permitting,
Right.
but now the nursery school kid is quarantined. The kid in her class is, and they can't come, and I can't go.
Oh, jeez.
Another lonely enter. We've had enough of her.
Yeah, I have to talk to Alicia. I'm afraid to call her because I'm worried about the same thing happening.
Right, and also with all the kids in school, it's
Yeah,
much
Alicia's
better.
kids are in school.
Yeah.
Hello, hi, this is Jeff Katz. How are you?
And
I wanted to know if love in this.
Leo is at SAR.
Oh, they've had quite a few cases, I think.
I think so.
Yeah, because a friend whose grandkid is there told me his class was quarantined.
Yeah.
And my kids in Israel, the whole country's on lockdown starting Friday.
That's what I heard.
People,
That must be higher anti-Semitism in Israel.
They want to know if they can go to school.
Israel is on lockdown? Is all of
Yeah.
Israel is going on lockdown?
Starting Friday.
Yeah,
Until until last Yom
You'll
Tov.
be there?
Until
Right.
last Yontif?
You're not going to
Yeah,
be there.
at least.
3
I mean-
weeks. 3 weeks. They're going to be on lockdown.
You can't go more than 500 meters from your home.
Oh, he has on the website.
Not even a Shabbos day's walk.
Definitely not. It's tough.
Yellowstalker?
They seem to do well with all, but not with partial. It's all or nothing.
etroglulav.com. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Be well. Shana Tova. Okay, bye-bye.
Rabbi Wolfson has returned. Do you hear us?
I do. I'm so sorry. But it was worth the delay in order to be able to hear you all.
Okay, just to answer the question, the Shoshanis will not this year be on Canal Street selling lulavim. But they go on to estroglulav.com and you can order through their website. I know nothing else. You have to look at the website to see about pickup.
Probably Brooklyn.
Are the Shoshanis no longer doing it?
He said, I just spoke to Ezra, the father, and he said we will not have a stall this year.
Wow. I remember them telling me last year that every year they think they're going to stop, and they sort of kept it up a tradition, and I guess now they finally have.
Well, COVID has another victim has fallen.
Right.
Okay, let's go on.
Okay, well, sorry, Jeff, did you want to say some more things, or you're happy to?
I'm very happy for you to just take over, Rabbi. We are very happy to see you and to hear you, and we look forward to your words of Torah.
Okay. It is nearly Rosh Hashanah. Professor Capel, I didn't realize you were here. What an honor. Welcome.
Glad to see you. It's been too long.
Glad to see you. It has been too long. It has been too long. Part of the NYU Stanton Street connection. We need Professor Wolf here as well. Where is Julia? Please tell her that she's missed. In any case, lovely to see everybody. These shiurim over the summer have been fantastic for me. I have loved them, and it's pretty wonderful to think that in the relatively short amount of time that I've been teaching, what Stanton Street has gone through. When Jeff and I sat down for a coffee early in the summer, wasn't quite sure where we'd be. Things are so difficult. And now look at us, right? A beautiful minyan, on Shabbat, beautiful selichot, a new rabbi appointed. They always say interim rabbis. It's never good being an interim rabbi. Not upset, I'm sure.
It's been delightful, though.
I'm very, very happy to be here. Okay. Let's do some learning. We have, for the last few weeks, been talking about Tanakh characters of the Yamim Noraim. This is my pet idea, that a very powerful and impactful way to get into the Yamim Noraim is to think about certain biblical characters and how they might connect up to these days. Characters maybe whose readings appear as part of the Torah readings of these days, or perhaps they appear in the liturgy for the days, or perhaps they don't appear in it at all, but there is something about their stories that connects up to the ideas of the period. And what is not done very frequently is think Last week, we looked at Noah. Now, these are stories right at the start of the Torah. We're going to now go to a very, very long way away from that. We're going to jump over all of the Torah. We are going to jump over all of the Nevi'im, and we are going to land in Ketuvim. And the passage that we are going to look at does not appear in the Torah readings of Rosh Hashanah. It does not appear in the liturgy for Rosh Hashanah. However, the opposite does happen. Rosh Hashanah does appear in this story. And a very strange representation of Rosh Hashanah is going to appear. I'm talking about the book of Nehemiah. Do anyone know anything about Nehemiah? Nothing deep, profound, just a few basic details. What's happening in the book of Nehemiah? When is it set?
It's the time of the restoration from the Babylonian exile. And Nehemiah is sent as the government representative, and he interacts with Ezra HaSofer, HaKohen.
Exactly. We are talking about a relatively small group who have returned from Babel. Of course, we mourn the destruction of the first temple greatly. It's the ultimate tragedy of the Bible. But life for the Jews in Babel seems to be pretty good. A small number have returned. The temple is beginning to be rebuilt. However, the people themselves, seemingly during the time of the Babylonian exile, Jewish education was not at its best. There is widespread illiteracy amongst the people. There is a lack of basic knowledge of the Jewish calendar. This is where we join the story. We are in Nehemiah chapter 8. Pasuk Bet, verse 2. Vayavi Ezra et HaKohen lifnei HaKahal, et HaTorah lifnei HaKahal. Or maybe I should have started in the previous verse. Vayasfu kol ha'am ki'ish echad. The whole people gathered together as one. Asher lifnei sha'ar hamayim, before the water gates, the gathering place. And they say to Ezra, bring us this Torah of Moshe, bring us our original script. Vayavi Ezra HaKohen et HaTorah lifnei HaKahal. Ezra brings this Torah scroll, and everybody is there. Me'ish ad isha, kol mevin lishmoa, anyone, male or female, anyone who can listen. When is it? B'yom echad lachodesh hashvi'i. On the first day of the 7th month, which is
Rosh
Rosh
Hashanah.
Hashanah.
exactly. Tishrei is 7th month. Vayikra v'olifnei harechov. He reads it to the people. Min ha'ol, from the beginning of the day, ad machatzit hayom, to halfway through the day. Everybody is there. Everybody is listening. He opens it. People stand. God, Ezra blesses God. The people answer. And now look what happens. He reads it, translates it, explains it. Verse 8. Now Nehemiah speaks up. And he says to all of them, I'm halfway through verse 9, Hayom kadosh hu laHashem Elokechem. Today is a holy day to God. This makes sense. But now the next words are astonishing. Al titablu v'al tivku. Don't mourn, he says. Don't cry. Ki vochim kol ha'am. All of the people were weeping. Kishamam et divrei haTorah, when they heard the words of the Torah. Vayomer lahem, Nehemiah says to them, Ichlu mashmanim, ushtu mamtakim. No, on the contrary, eat fatty, delicious foods. Eat sweet things. V'shilchu manot, send gifts to your friends. Ki kadosh hayom la'adonenu. This is a holy day to our Lord. V'al te'atzvu. Do not be sad. Ki chedvat ha'am, ki chedvat Hashem hu me'uzchem. Rejoice, the Lord is the source of your strength. And verse 12 tells us that the people do go home. And they do indeed do this. But this astonishing little piece seems to tell us that on Rosh Hashanah, the people wept. That when they heard about Rosh Hashanah, they cried. They felt it was a day of mourning. Any thoughts, anybody, before we go deeper? What about Rosh Hashanah is causing them to weep? Because we don't associate Rosh Hashanah with being a sad day, right? I mean, sure, there are serious elements to it, but we consider it a chag. There are festive meals on it, and indeed that's what Nehemiah says to them. Why are the people crying?
Because their lives are held in the balance on the Rosh Hashanah. It's the day of judgment.
Interesting. Now,
Because they've lost track of the Torah. The text is now no longer a familiar piece of their lives, and they haven't maintained the covenant of old.
Right. So there are two things which are happening there, right? If I'm combining Jeff's answer, was that you, Robert, who said that then? Sorry, my screen didn't switch.
Yes, it was.
So Jeff and Robert are saying two different things, which I don't think disagree with one another. On the one hand, Jeff is saying it's the severity of the day. It's a day of judgment. Robert is adding that there's an element of realization of what's been lost, of realizing their distance, their foreignness from the tradition that is theirs. So Nehemiah obviously disagrees with this, But Jeff, you didn't have too much difficulty in giving an explanation. You said, there is something core to the day which would lead them to this. Does this strike people as, in some ways, real and authentic to Rosh Hashanah, that it should be a day of crying or a day of mourning?
There are indeed like those two aspects, but then the question is also like, when did the change happen? Is it because of this text that we're reading, or?
Sorry, Alexander, you cut out for a second. Say that again.
So indeed, you're asking yourself the question, why were people sad, or why are we happy now for the holiday? So you can also ask the question like, how did the change happen?
Right, so great point, Alexander, and I'm going to introduce you all to a tradition which you might not be familiar with. Okay, listen to this. Despite Nehemiah's response to the people, despite him saying to them, don't cry, don't weep, go eat, go celebrate, there developed a long-standing tradition in many communities that Rosh Hashanah would be a fast day. In Ashkenaz, in the Middle Ages, I'm not talking biblical, I'm not talking Talmudic, talking in the Middle Ages, you could find many communities where either the whole or some of the community would fast on Rosh Hashanah. People ready to see a fun Shulchan Aruch? So the Shulchan Aruch, remember, is later than what I've just described. It's not really the Middle Ages, it's the beginning of the modern period. It's the early 16th century. It is the canonical code of Jewish law. Look at this line of the Shulchan Aruch. We eat, we drink, we celebrate. And we do not fast the Rosh Hashanah. However, yesh makomot, there are places the tradition is as follows, that where they have a practice of fasting on Rosh Hashanah, and such a person mishaneh regilato, changes their practice, ve'eino mitaneh, and doesn't fast, such a person eino mashlim shnato, is not going to finish the year. Isn't that great?
Talk about being off the derech.
Fantastic, right? The Shulchan Aruch says, on Rosh Hashanah we eat, we drink, we rejoice, we don't fast. It's a happy day on Rosh Hashanah. However, someone whose practice is to fast on Rosh Hashanah, and they depart from that practice, well, you're not going to see another Rosh Hashanah. Shocking, right? Astonishing. Now, as far as I know, this tradition no longer exists. I don't know anybody who does fast today. But there seems to be some counter-theme which stems all the way from thousands of years ago in the time of Nehemiah, all the way through the Middle Ages, and apparently even to the time of the Shulchan Aruch, that in contrast to the theme of rejoicing and celebration of Rosh Hashanah was a theme of fasting. Now, Jeff, you said obviously correctly that it's a day of judgment. But, we're not used to, we don't think of judgment quite in these terms, right? Fasting, crying, mourning. So what I want to do is I want to share an idea of one of the greatest teachers of the 20th century, Rav Yitzchak Hutner. Anyone heard of Rav Yitzchak Hutner? Familiar name to anybody?
Yeah.
Rav Hutner lived in, born in Europe, moved to Israel, or pre-state to Israel, Mandate Palestine as a young man, spent the number of years there, and came back to Europe, and then spent the bulk of his life in America from the 30s onwards. Maybe we'll talk a bit later about some more detail in his biography. Let's look. Let's learn this piece together. He says as follows. He says that when the people fast, when they cry in the time of Nehemiah, and when he says to them, don't do it, don't fast, it is what he calls in his beautiful poetic rabbinic Hebrew, Shlila shel afal pichein. Afal pichein means even though. He's saying to them, you're not wrong. You are in fact correct to fast. Or you're correct to feel that you should want to fast. However, there is something else, something even stronger than that, which means go home and celebrate. You are incorrect practically, but you are not fundamentally incorrect. Fundamentally, you are onto something. What is that? So let's now look at a different idea, a different text. And it's a text which I struggle with a lot, but it's I've always struggled with it, I think, until really I came across this piece of Rav Hutner. If I were to ask you, who are the ultimate Ba'alei Machloket? Who are the ultimate people in the Jewish tradition who argue with one another? Who are the classic argumentative pairs?
Shammai and Hillel.
Very good, right? I thought that might be, people might say Ramban, they might say Abaya Rava. You got it straight away. Hillel and Shammai. Look at this. Tanu Rabbanan, our sages teach. In fact, you know what? I'm speaking rather a lot. Why doesn't somebody else read for us this source? The Gemara in Masechet Eruvin. Margie, would you read? You are muted.
You're muted, Margie.
I'm
Now you're muted again.
me.
Oh no.
I'm it's not working.
Oh, no,
That's
you're good.
That's okay.
Okay. You want me to read the English? The sages taught for 2.5 years.
That's right.
Bet Shammai, Bet Hillel disagreed. They say it would have been preferable had man not been created than to have been created. Ooh. And those said it is preferable for man to have been created than had he not been created. Ultimately, they concluded it would have been preferable had man not been created than to have been created. However, now that he has been created, he should examine his actions. Oh boy.
I'm sorry, look guys, I know it's heavy, but if you can't do heavy before Rosh Hashanah in a year of a pandemic, when can you? Okay? I mean, it doesn't really get much bigger than this, does it? Right? Like, was it... Let's call a spade a spade. Let's be as simple as possible. Was it worth it? Right? That's the question which Shammai and Hillel are addressing. We're not actually told who says what. We can sort of assume that it's Shammai who thinks it wasn't worth creating. Noach lo la'adam shelo nivra yoter mishenivra. Better that we would not have been created than we would have been created, says one. The other one says, no, it was worthwhile creating. But here's the funny thing. They end up agreeing with one another. Eventually, they come to the same position. And what is that position? That better to have not been created. I mean, it's terrible, isn't it? I mean, Hillel and Shammai are the ultimate people who disagree with one another. But on this ultimate question, they agree. And their agreement is arguably one of the most difficult and depressing things to entertain.
I question its very theology.
Please, go on.
Because creation was the work of Hashem, and if Hashem is all-knowing and omnipotent and eternal, then that act of creation is in and of itself something that is not to be doubted. And to doubt it is to somehow to doubt the essential.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that, well, it's kind of shocking what they say and they quote agree upon. And then their conclusion.
Richard, can I just pause you for a second?
Oh.
They don't really teach this Gemara, do they? Right? I mean, you've probably heard the one of the convert coming to Hillel and Shammai and saying, "Teach me the Torah standing on one leg." You know, we love that. We love that.
It's not new to me. No, not at all. I hear what you're saying vis-a-vis that if God created man, God created the world, right? Then how can we say that there's a negativity in it like this? Well, I think there's two things happening. We're looking upon the reality of the world and how much man screws up, and how much destruction there is. That's what they're reflecting upon. They're reflecting upon a reality that if, as it were, if we didn't know how to laugh, we would really be crying a lot. That's the nature of a lot of life. And that's all they seem to be saying. And then saying that, but we can make it better. We can pull ourselves back from the precipice. How? We must examine our actions. And obviously we have a Torah that then tells us, once we've examined the actions, what to do. So that's, I think, where they're coming from. I mean, listen, don't criticize them. How about criticizing God, who after he sees, after a couple of generations, I have to destroy the whole thing. Right? I mean, it's not like, and you know what? Once I I find these people, the Jews, and move things along, the first temple, no, we have to destroy that. So God is a pessimist. in a way, and so they seem to be in a way, I think, kind of reflecting that, but giving you an answer. Examine your actions, and of course in the context of Torah and what we know we're supposed to do, and we can make the best of a problematic situation.
Richard, that's good. That is good. You've given a good, valid defense of it, but I have to say that my gut when I read it definitely feels like Robert, which, I mean, not just that I sort of like theologically disagree with it, but more than that, I feel it runs counter to everything I love about Judaism. Judaism is a religion of life. You shall live through the mitzvot, you shall not die through the mitzvot. We love family, we love community. We believe in, we don't reject the material and physical world, we elevate it. Right?
Yet there is in contrast to that. And I think this is maybe Hillel and Shammai are really reflecting the dialogue that God had with himself when he destroyed the world with in the days of Noah. And he said, you know, is it worth this? I don't believe it was worth this creation. However, however, I'm going to save humanity. And how am I going to save humanity? I'm going to give them what to live by, meaning that to examine themselves through a Torah. And I think that's maybe what Hillel and Shammai are really, they are agreeing with God in his pessimism, but also in his optimism, in his, let's say, muted optimism.
Well, I think there are a couple of other texts that come to mind. One of them is the text of Bereshit itself, where Rivka asks Yitzchak, Im kein lama ze anochi, if life is going to be like that with these boys wrestling in my womb, why was I even created? And which I think is a significant text about questioning in the mouth of a woman, which I like for other reasons. But the other piece comes, and I want to say from Bereshit Rabbah, from the early part of the text, where it talks about God creating the world and destroying them, and finally coming in the Midrash to one last try. And then there's a whole section that deals with the questions of chesed and rachamim, or tzedek and rachamim, rather, I think it is. And that finally God takes the coldness of justice and the heat of mercy and mixes them like water of different temperatures in a fine glass, and lo and behold, it stands. So there's a lot of debate that goes back perhaps even farther than Hillel and Shammai about these questions, these ultimate questions of life and death and of creation. But once we have the text of Bereshit in our hands, I wonder if we really can still do that, or whether it becomes speculation about something that we have no right to speculate about it because it's Lifnei Maseh Bereshit.
You know, well, Robert, fascinating what you say. You are very close to anticipating Rav Hutner himself. So Rav Hutner seems to side more with Robert than with Richard in responding to this text. And he says, not only do I disagree with it, but Hashem disagrees with it. Now, it's true, Richard and Jeff reference God at the flood, but prior to that, God has created mankind and says, Tov me'od, very good. Creation, for the most part, is Tov, good. Creation of humanity, Tov me'od, very good. And Hillel and Shammai both say, Tov shelo nivra mishenivra. Better that humanity not have been created than to have been created. For a footnote,
just for a second, that is that the Tov Me'od, I mean, obviously there's lots of commentary on that, but Tov Me'od, the one that I love best of the Bereshis Rabbah is what was good, what was especially good about it? The Yetzer Hara, the freedom of choice. And it seems to me that certainly from the point of view, I wouldn't be shocked if Hillel and Shammai thought this, that in fact, that's where we screw up. Exactly in the Tov Me'od. And of course, the Midrash says, well, without the Yetzer Hara, we wouldn't do anything, right? We wouldn't have a family, we wouldn't build houses, we wouldn't, have, big businesses, et cetera, et cetera. So it sees it as a positive thing, the Yetzer Hara. But there really, we know very well, is quite another side to that coin.
I think what you're saying is not only correct, I think it connects exactly to this. For Rav Hutner, the key is going to be in the following. You're probably beginning to see, even if not the exact connection, something of the parallel movement in Nehemiah and in this argument of Shammai and Hillel, which is not an argument, right? Or perhaps we can say the argument between Shammai and Hillel on the one hand and God on the other. Perhaps you're beginning to see something of it. The creation of mankind, the creation of humanity, Rosh Hashanah, what response does that elicit? Does it elicit rejoicing and eating and sharing of gifts with one another, as Nehemiah instructs the people to do, as Hashem says, Tov Me'od? Or does it in fact elicit crying, weeping, mourning, fasting, and the conclusion that Tov Shelo Nivra Mishenivra, better to not have been created than to have been created? How to understand that? For Rav Hutner, it all comes down to the following. We are going to look at one halacha of Maimonides. Maimonides, who wrote arguably the greatest halachic work of all time, Mishneh Torah. Mishneh Torah, which is a master work of categorization, of dividing Jewish law and Jewish thought into many different sections. Where does Maimonides choose to place his discussion of free will? Anybody know? He places it not in the introduction, not in a separate section, perhaps Deot or something. He places it in Hilchot Teshuvah, exactly halfway through. There are 10 chapters in the laws of repentance. Chapter 5, Halacha 1, is the following. Reshut l'kol adam netuna. Every person is given the following choice. Im ratzah lahatot atzmo l'derech tova. A person wishes to be good, liot tzaddik, to be righteous. Hareshut biyado. They can do so. V'im ratzah lahatot et atzmo l'derech ra'ah. If they wish to go down a negative path of evil, liot rasha, hareshut biyado. They can do that. Ushakatuv b'Torah, the verses in the Garden of Eden. Hen ha'adam haya ke'echad mimenu. Now that Adam and Eve have eaten from the tree, they are like one of us, ladat tov v'ra, to know good and evil. Kolomar, which is to say, hen min zeh shel adam haya yachid ba'olam. This species of humanity is unique in the world. Ve'ein min sheni domelo. No other species is like it, like the human race. Zeh ha'inyan, in this matter, that people, unlike any other creature, can know the difference between good and evil and can choose which to do. And the Rambam places this centrally within the idea of Teshuvah. Now, I do have Rav Hutner's, I'm afraid I haven't translated his quite challenging rabbinic Hebrew. But I'm going to tell you essentially what he says. What are people now seeing Maimonides, or are they seeing the new screen?
Rambam.
Rambam, okay. Rav Hutner says as follows. Man's capacity for human free will, bechira chofshit, results in the beauty and the greatness of everything that human civilization can achieve. but at one and the same time, it results in the absolutely terrible, catastrophic results of what people can do and of what people have done. When Hillel and Shammai say, Tov shelo nivra mishenivra, better humanity not to have been created than to have been created. And God says, Tov me'od, it is very good that humanity is created.
Yeah.
They are two sides of the same coin. They are not disagreeing with one another. I'm sorry to now go for a piece of difficult rabbinic Hebrew, untranslated, but the poetry is so beautiful, I just have to share it with you. This is from Rav Hutner. So people see the letter Tet, the bottom right paragraph?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So he's introduced Nehemiah, he's introduced the Rambam and the centrality of free will. He has introduced Hillel and Shammai's argument. And now he says as follows. They are one and the same thing. Do you see the third line from the bottom right? A new sentence starts one word in, Ela shehem hem hadvarim. They are exactly the same thing. Better for man not to have been created than to have been created on the one hand, and Tov me'od, very good that he was. It's one and the same, two sides of the same coin. Halo ikar hachidush bebriat ha'adam. I know there's a few fluent Hebrew speakers among you, so I hope you appreciate this, and I'll try and translate and give the sense of it. The fundamental insight and novelty of the creation of humanity. The koach habechira shebo is the strength and power to choose, free will. Vayitzar b'shnei yudin. The word "and" he created, God created, has got two yuds in. Exactly what you said, Richard. Yitzirah kefula, a double creation. Min ha'elyonim u min ha'tachtonim, from upper and lower. Now look at the following. This is just beautiful poetry, and it also terrifies me every time I read it. Harei nitba'er lanu. It is explained to us. Ki hayachas hachiyuvi lekoach habechira. The positive approach, the positive conception of free will. Overhu, and now I'm going to the top of the next page, travels by dafka al derech hayachas hashlili. The positive understanding of human free will only can work by traveling by the negative, the destructive understanding of human free will. Get ready for this. This is the sentence. Ein osher habechira mitgaleh. The beauty there, the happiness of human free will is not revealed. Ela achar hakarat ason habechira. Jeff, how do you translate ason?
Disaster.
Catastrophe. Only after the recognition of the disaster, the catastrophe of what human free will entails. You cannot appreciate everything that is beautiful about humanity until you have appreciated everything which is terrible about humanity. Mimela hare adarabah hi hanotenet. On the contrary, it is given. Ein hatov me'od shebriat ha'adam. The very goodness of the creation of humanity is not revealed ela la'achar ha'hakara ha'choderet ki noach la'adam shelo nivra mishenivra, until it has been recognized that better we should not have been created than we should have been created. This is terrifying stuff. This is beautiful stuff, and it is terrifying stuff. Ubayom ha-Rosh Hashanah, look at this. On Rosh Hashanah, Asher Zikaron le Yom Rishon, which is the memory of the first day. The Hainu Yom Briat Adam, the day of the creation of humanity, right? Rosh Hashanah is not the creation of the world. Rosh Hashanah is the creation of Adam and Eve. On this day, the central Kedusha of this day, again, more terrifying poetry now. Do you see the paragraph of Yud and then 4 lines down? And a few words in, the 5th word in after the comma. On this day, Nidlakot Boshtei HaShavuah, 2 torches are lit. Hashayachot lebriat Adam, in relation to the creation of mankind. Doleket bo hashelhevet, the torch, the flame is lit of Noach lo la'adam shelo nivra mishenivra, better that humanity not to have been created. V'na'aseh mizeh, and from this torch, genuche ganach yilule yalil. Anybody recognize what those words are? The Gemara says, what is the sound of the shofar? One answer that the Gemara gives, it is genuche ganach, it is a groan. It is a cry, a lament. Anyone remember, Jeff, you've probably been most invested in these. What are the words that come immediately after the blowing of the shofar in Musaf? Hayom
Harata Olam.
Today the world is created. A cry, a groan, a lament. Today the world is created. That is what the shofar says. But we carry on. We are now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down, a few words in the beginning of the sentence. From this very torch, the higher, greater flame is lit, shel tov me'od, of it being very good that humanity is created. These 2 torches are lit together. Zu lama'ala mizu, one above the other. And Nehemiah says to the people, Al tivku, do not cry. Ki chedvat Hashem hu ma'uzchem. The Lord is your strength. When he tells them not to cry, he is not saying it's wrong to cry. On the contrary, ein dai dema'ot, there are not enough tears. Levate el yadam et ha'ason shel briat ha'adam, to give expression to the catastrophe, which is the creation of humanity. However, after that crying, en al malivkot, there is nothing to cry about. It is very good. The shofar represents both elements. The shofar represents the catastrophe, which is the creation of humanity, and it represents the joy, the cry of happiness upon the birth of a child. Both of them are true. The people in the time of Nehemiah cry. In Ashkenaz, they fasted on Rosh Hashanah. Hillel and Shammai said better that we shouldn't have been created. All of that gives expression to the catastrophe, the terrible things that people can do and have done. And once you have recognized that, and only once you have recognized that, only then can you say, don't cry. Go celebrate, go eat, go drink. Tov me'od, very good that humanity is created. This is what Rosh Hashanah is. Rosh Hashanah calls us to ask ourselves, have we been worthy of creation? We individuals, we a community, we humanity. Understanding what humanity is worthy of. I'll just finish with the following observation. I gave the briefest of sketches of Rav Hutner's life. I'll add in a little bit more detail.
It's interesting, the title of his book, of course, in the tone that you've set here.
Very good, very good. Yes, quite right. Listen to the following. I said that he left Europe as a young man to go and study in Israel. Studied under Rav Kook. He studied in the yeshiva of Hebron. In 1929, he went away for Shabbat 1 week to visit friends or family in Yerushalayim, and that was the weekend of the Hebron massacre. Everybody he knew in the yeshiva was killed. He went back to Europe. He saw the way Europe was going in the 30s. He watched from a distance the destruction of European Jewry in America. In the early 1970s, he was in Israel, looking at establishing a yeshiva there. Coming back from Israel to America, he was on the flight which became the Black September Entebbe flight. He was not taken to Entebbe. He was taken to Jordan, where he was held prisoner for over a month. His beard was cut off. He lost half of his body weight. He was redeemed and returned to America, Erev Rosh Hashanah. Here is a person who at the beginning of his life has been a hair's breadth away from the Hebron massacre as a young man in his 20s, and as an old man in his 70s has experienced most terrifying ordeal. I sort of feel that his work in general, and this piece specifically, which we just did, and there are others like it, but it captures it extremely powerfully, is his commentary on the 20th century. Right? You cannot take a serious look at the 20th century and not conclude that there is true evil in the world. And yet, nevertheless, and to deny that is gross, to deny that is superficial and dismissive. But once you have done that, to dig deep and to say, no, nevertheless, it's worth it. Nevertheless, we are going to justify our existence. About that, everybody.
Well, it is fascinating stuff, indeed. And we can't escape the idea that the world is full to overflowing, perhaps, with evil. And nevertheless, I think that what Rosh Hashanah and the 10 days of Tshuva call us to do is to uncover within all that evil in the world the core, the garin, the seed of the goodness that is human potential. Yeah. And that's, of course, the midrash that says, not tov ma'od, but tov adam.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, everybody, I apologize if that was heavy, but if you can't be heavy, Erev Rosh Hashanah, when can you?
Right.
That was really heavy.
Thank you.
Judy, in the spirit of this time of year, forgive me for it.
You got it.
Yeah.
It sort of makes sense, though, that we shouldn't have been created. I'm with that. I'm kind of feeling that way.
Well,
however,
that's not the point of the piece. The point of the piece is to have that realization and then push past it.
I got it.
Go beyond the negative.
However, can I tell you a light story, which is a Jewish story based on this?
Always.
Always, yeah.
The story is of two old fellows who are discussing the very passages you're quoting, citing, and they're getting more and more pessimistic as they think about what life is like and the pain of life and the evil of life and so on. And one of them says to the other, finally, he says, you know, it's like the Pasuk said that the lucky ones are the ones that don't get born at all. And the other one says, Samus, that's absolutely true. But how many like that do you ever meet?
Lovely,
The truth of the Yetzer Hara.
lovely. Wonderful stuff, everybody. Wonderful stuff.
Rabbi, could you just help me a little bit, because my hearing is not always what it should be. The
Of course.
spelling of Hutner's name.
Hutner.
Hutner?
Yeah.
Correct.
It's
Yeah.
not- he was the, I think he was the Rosh Yeshiva at Chaim Berlin.
That's right.
All right, then I can learn more about him.
Yes,
It's a very nice piece on him. Rather, lots of details.
Yeah, beautiful.
Well, everybody, I loved learning with you. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
very much.
Rabbi.
Gemar Chatima Tova.
Gemara
Chatima
Chatima.
Tova.
See you next week.
Chatima Tova.
I will see you all soon. May this be a wonderful year for all of us.
Amen.
Bye-bye.
Amen.
All the very best.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.